I drew Katara from Avatar: The Last Airbender for this week's entry in the ABC Pop Culture Challenge. I'll go through every step of the process, adding details where I see fit. And after I finish the drawing, I'll share what I'd change so that you do not make my mistakes. This drawing is very different from my others. The visual clarity is miles beyond my previous works, even down to the proportions of the arms and legs. I mean, look at those hands! Jeez! Also, I got long COVID for 2 days after I finished this, and then I had to do a lot of catch-up work. That's why I've been dormant for the past, 35 days. How is my channel still getting views? Now that you're up to speed, the first thing I did was find a ton of pictures of Katara in various poses from Google, because I'm lazy. Then compiled them into this app called PureRef. Hashtag not spawn, but maybe in the future, hashtag please spawn. That would be very nice. Anyway, I have this pop-up to see my references all the time, very useful. I can zoom very far to see the finer details and zoom out very far to see the general shape, both of which I used heavily. Importantly, I didn't go straight into the sketch, but did a few thumbnail sketches to kind of feel the piece and plan it before I actually drew it. This is something that I changed from my normal art process that I feel benefited the vibe of the piece dramatically. Now we're on to the fun stuff. The sketch starts with refining and correcting the thumbnail. If there's a problem, refer to the references, then just correct it. In fact, really the thumbnail is just a guide. The actual sketch itself is probably going to be completely different to the thumbnail. That's the preliminary sketch done, but there's still much more to do. Now I need to draw in the forms, like the braids and the hair loopies, as well as the clothing folds. When you've finished with the sketch, you can touch it up with the line art. It's not quite tracing the sketch, but put simply, you just follow the same motions as in the sketch and maybe exaggerate the forms if you want. There is a lot of things you can do with it, but that's the very basics of it. Now, if you're on Clip Studio Paint, you should use a vector layer. Vector layers are dynamic and allow for revision even after you've drawn the line, and not just erasing it. Now that we have a full outline of our image, this by itself should be good enough to post online. But of course, if you want to move on, and you probably should, then make a new layer, select the subject, and put a random base color within the line art. Make sure to remove any gaps that would show the background on the character. This colored layer will be the main layer for all of your colored layers. All of your color layers are going to clip onto this one. It'll make it a lot easier, trust me. After that, make a group called base colors, and make a layer for every material color. For example, blue for the fabric, or brown for the hair. All of these should be in... I've already said that. After each layer is made, create groups above each color and clip them into their respective layers. This is where every shade, highlight and polish goes. I didn't do this perfectly because I was experimenting. Shading complex forms is just combining simple forms or using them on their own, just slightly more naturally. For example, the arms are just cylinders and have identical shading. For the final polish, add high saturation transitions from dark to light on the skin. This is called subsurface scattering. When the light bounces more in the skin because it is slightly translucent, and then it looks more reddish or orange because of the blood. Then add some white specks on the bits you think would be reflective, like the eyes. If you want, add some blue bounce light on the side with a strong color dodge layer of the rim light to make the character pop. After the touch-up, we can add some adjustment layers. First, use a color balance to unify the colors and bring out the colors that you want to emphasize for the feel of the image. Then I use the sunset gradient map preset to 20 preset. Then I use the sunset gradient map preset set to 20% opacity. If you want, add a brightness and contrast layer and bring both up by 10. Now, before I show you the result, let's talk about what I would do differently. Firstly, I did not flip my canvas after the sketch. Flipping the canvas gives a fresh look at the image, giving you instant feedback on proportions and balance of the image. maybe the head is skewed to the right and you didn't notice for ages, but it becomes abundantly clear on a flip. Then you can fix it right there before there's any line art commitment or any colour commitment, because it becomes a lot harder to fix that the later on you fix it. The next thing I would change is my layer management. I have a very bad habit of not naming my layers, so I waste minutes trying to find certain layers. If they were all named, I would have shaved off an average of 20 minutes for this, and add that up for all of my other drawings, and that just takes away time you could be watching TV or playing Rocket League. Or, studying, but who studies, right? I don't know. Now, here's the final piece I made, and because you've made it this far, you probably like my stuff. So, watch this video of me trying to draw Jiren from Dragon Ball Super.